years of my preaching to write this down and to look at it very closely. The very first day is this morning. What I'm about to share with you. Now, Jesus didn't come to the earth to accomplish the will of God directly. No. He didn't have a nature that can make him do that. When God wanted his will to be done on earth, his will to be done on earth, there was no spiritual value for God to incarnate himself, but there was spiritual value for God to incarnate Christ. So what God did was to incarnate his son. And then his son have will of son, not will of God. The son has the destiny of son, the equipment of son, the power of son. I mean S-O-N. And then when the son came, he incarnated Jesus, and then he became Jesus Christ. So what Jesus Christ did on earth, what Jesus Christ did on earth was to do the will of the Son of God, not the will of God. You see, it is who you are that determines how God uses you. It is the will you have that determines how you relate with the will of God. Let me say again. I say it is your own will that determines how you relate with the will of God. So Jesus has the will of the Son of God, not the will of God. He had the will of the Son of God. So redemption, or the messianism of the suffering servant, which Jesus accomplished, was a messianism that thrived on the will of the Son of God. The power that Jesus manifested was the power of the Son of God, not the power of the fullness of God. The strength that Jesus had was the strength of the Son of God. The power he had, the backing he had, the support he had. So the capital reason Jesus was raised on earth was to fulfill the will of Christ, and not necessarily the will of God. Now, but the lion is going to come after God has incarnated himself. After God has incarnated himself, the Lion of Judah, he will come with the will of God to accomplish. That lion is a man who has the will of God to accomplish the will of God. Why we should be tolerant in marriage is that, or we should enjoy constant fellowship, is because there is no man or woman that can know your will, your mind. So when there is marriage, there should be constant fellowship, so that a wife will know the will of her husband through fellowship, how he reasons. There is a great blessing I want to give you today. The lion is about to come. His will is not known. So how do we represent him? His will is in the word. If you look at the book of Romans, the Bible says something very beautiful. He said, who can know the mind of the Spirit? You see, you have to know his mind. The mind is a pivot of thought. You have to know it's a place of will, intellectualism, a stronghold of emotions. How do you represent this lion when you don't know his will? How he reasons? All blessed women who love their husband and family, they care about the way the head reasons. Now, if the woman is slow to understand, the head should make effort both to teach and to allow her to see. There are will you teach, and there are will you allow a wife to see. Why Jesus took Peter, James, and John to transfiguration in Matthew chapter 17 is just to allow them to see. That seeing is part of teaching. Somebody didn't hear what I said. I said seeing. They witnessed it, so it was inculcated into them. They were enlightened because they saw. At Gethsemane, he took 3 of them. He was not teaching, but he allowed them to see. That sin was part of teaching. Now, by sin, he imparted them. Don't forget that when Moses and Elijah came and that atmosphere changed in the mountain, they were in the same cloud. And then if you look at verse 9, he said, don't allow any other person to know until. That was making them exceptional. That was bringing them into the inner sanctuary. That was making them powerful. Now, it is the way that we are that determines what we do for God. Now I am going to something else. On who we are determine how God uses us. Now, don't forget, I'm going to go back to Jesus, but I want to make something clear. Now, some people think they can do anything for God because of zeal. Huh? They think that when they have zeal. Now, excuse me. You can't do everything for God because of zeal. You can only do for God something you were wired. Something, because whatever you want, you will do for God makes demand on your capacity. Not just capacity, the way you are. You want to sing. You like singing for God. But did God give you a voice to sing for him? Has he given you a voice? You want to teach intelligence. Has he wired you to teach intelligence? Now, there is something I said. In the course I wrote now, I said when God wanted the man Jesus to accomplish his will, he put Christ in him. The essence of putting Christ is to make sure that Christ persuaded that man, the visionary Christ, to do that will. Even when Jesus, you know the way man is, the human mind goes up and down. Even what happened in Gethsemane, when Jesus was saying, take the cup away from me, Christ said, no. We can't take the cup away from you. I'm here. I'm here. You cannot go. You can't go. You can't go. Christ pinned Jesus down until Jesus died. God knew that the only chance he has to make sure that Jesus died was to put Christ in him. Now that Christ is called the enabling spirit of grace that made it possible for Jesus to do the will of God. Do you think it was ordinary Do you think it was ordinary that David went and stood before Goliath? No. There was a force. There was a royal spirit from the lineage of Judah. It wasn't ordinary. No, it wasn't ordinary that David would go before Goliath, desiring to die. No. There was a persuasion.